This is Calculon, the robot acting star of All My Circuits, the show within a show on Futurama. And you're listening to This Week in Geek with Mike the Birdman Dodd and the rest of the Twig crew.
Did you grow up with the NES, PlayStation, Star Wars, cartoons, and 80s TV? Do you like to think who would win in a fight between Batman and the Master Chief? Comics, games, movies, music, and TV, they're gonna tell you everything you need. Superheroes or not, they got your back. They're gonna save the world of geeks. Comics, games, movies, music, and TV, they're gonna tell you everything you need. Superheroes or not, they got your back. They're gonna save the world of geeks. This Week in Geek. This Week in Geek.
Well, hello. Welcome out to our first, I guess, roundup show that we're doing during our summer break. We are off for the next 2 months. Well, maybe a little less than 2 months, depending on when this comes out. But we are off from our regular live programming, where we're doing, major shows every single week. And we're sort of doing roundups where we can collect some of the reviews that have come out individually, as well as thoughts on some of smaller things like movies and indie games and stuff that are sort of a roundup, and we're sort of doing that here in this. This one's going to be mostly Alex heavy and probably only Alex stuff, because Birdman has had a whole lot of stuff going on, and he's got a few that he's working on that should be coming out next week. We'll do another roundup show, and as well, Ken's got a project he's working on. These are sort of longer games to review, so that's coming. We'll also be doing some other stuff that I'll talk about at the end of the show here. But in the intro here, I was just thinking, do I do individual full reviews of some of these titles? Don't think we're going to be able to get to that, seeing as we're technically on vacation. So what I want to do is just sort of briefly talk about a few games that I have. This is sort of like the indie game roundup. I want to mention the few games that I'm playing on PC and a few others that are on console that I just want to just briefly touch upon. I'll put links in the descriptions for the show if anybody wants to check them out. Interesting ideas, cool stuff behind them. First thing here is Fragrant Story and Papayas Path. It's a 2-in-1 package that I received for the Switch for review, and to just give a preview for and check out. Fragrant Story, I believe the history behind it ended up being it was a DS or a 3DS title. It's the last physical release released for it years after the console was basically over. It's an RPG. There was more of a little bit of a backlash because of how short it was. It seemed like a lot of people were saying it was a bit of a gimmick just to get people to buy physical. I don't know. I think it's pretty cool. I'm playing it digitally. It came with a 2-in-1 pack. I'm playing it on the Switch 2, even though it's a Switch 1 code. I think it's pretty cool. It's interesting, neat idea. If it's worth checking out, it's got to be something that maybe is up your alley when it comes to RPGs and that style, but it's worth checking out, I think, at least to give a look to it. That's for sure. Also, Bases Loaded 2, second season. We talked about Bases Loaded being ported over onto Switch, and this is the same deal. Same sort of engine. It has all of the bells and whistles you come to expect when it comes to emulated games on the Switch platform or even any other modern console, different versions of the game for different consoles, Super Nintendo and original Nintendo, the ability to change TV filters and make save states, that sort of stuff. Works out pretty well. And to go along with that also was Goal 2, which we covered the first goal on this as well. So this is the second one. More of the same. Good quality emulation, good quality presentation. It is that same sort of fun factor that you find in these retro games on the modern console. I think it's cool, worth checking out. There's not a whole lot of soccer and baseball games that are, like this arcadey style still coming out. So having the ability to go back and play them, it's pretty worth it in the age of the only arcadey style thing coming back is like Backyard Baseball finally, and we haven't had a chance to look at that yet. We've put in a request to see if we can, but if not, that's something we might have to look at on our own sometime down the line when our schedules clear up and we're back to, you know, full-time working on this stuff. But as it stands, if you're looking for a couple cheap but pretty awesome experiences, Bases Loaded 2 and Goal 2 are probably ones that you can't really go wrong with. I've had a few other things I'm looking at, like Beyond Words. For anybody that doesn't know, Beyond Words is the best way to describe it is like Scrabble meets roguelike, sort of, I guess. Lots of cool modifiers and powers and all the cool fun stuff. Some of the people behind it are people that made Time Splitters 2, and Time Splitters 3. And then a few people behind this are also people that worked on the original GoldenEye and Perfect Dark. So it's a passion project of some like old school retro guys. And it's pretty fun. It works quite well. I mean, I've had a pretty fun time just sort of bouncing along with it. It basically is exactly what it sounds like. It's on every platform. It's on Xbox, PC via Steam, Switch, and PlayStation. It's going to play basically the same no matter what you play it on. Plays basically on a potato. You just have to have at least 8 gigs of RAM, but video card is not really. You can play this on like integrated graphics. It's not a big problem at all. It's just you got to have enough system resources basically to run in the background. Fun, good game. I really do recommend this one. That's for sure. Other stuff that I've been checking out is The Mound, Omen of Cthulhu. This is a game that, I was set for review on Xbox, but it's also a Play Anywhere title, so I activated it on my Xbox Series S, and then I also played it on my Windows PC. I can say it works better, at least for me, on the Xbox. On PC, I had some resolution issues. It tried to default to 4K only because my monitor was 4K, and it was not behaving nicely when I would turn it to exclusive full screen mode and then try to turn the resolution down to like 1080p or 1440p so that I could get better performance out of the, getting 60 FPS consistently, because otherwise I'd have to keep it at 4K and then crank the settings down lower because it's not the most well optimized game, at least in my experience on PC. But it didn't want to play nice with borderless full screen or windowed mode, and full screen was like, if I put it into full screen exclusive mode and changed it to any resolution other than my native 4K, it did weird magnification things, blowing things off the screen. The aspect ratios were all off. It's just not quite there. By default, it basically, you're forced to either have a super duper high-end PC to play it. And I have a 3080 Ti. I've got a 12th gen Intel CPU. I would say I have a really, really high-end PC from like 3 years ago of what you would consider that. And then it's still like most games, the requirements are much less than what I have. But it was just giving me issues. So I ended up jumping back onto console and playing it. So your mileage may vary depending on, what your system is. If you've got like a 50 series and got crazy money to have that kind of stuff, then you probably have no trouble. Or running it at the resolution that it kind of wants to force it. I didn't want to mess around with stuff like Special K or anything to try to force resolutions or change things. It should just work out of the box or out of the code. And it to be honest didn't really work that great on PC, at least not through the Xbox store. I'm sure if you have it through like Steam or something else, maybe it'll work better. But as a Play Anywhere title, it wasn't the greatest on PC. Console worked fine. Was able to run it no problem. And honestly, it's pretty fun. Like, it does a lot of cool stuff when it comes to like, it's meant to be mostly, multiplayer because it messes with your mind. Like what other players see on your team may not be there. It's all about hallucinations and like what you see as a gun might be a stick or vice versa. There's some pretty cool aspects to it. There is a single player mode to get you up to speed, like a prologue, and get you up and running. And then it's mostly meant obviously to be online. Pretty cool, pretty fun stuff. I'll put a link in the description so you can check it out if you'd like. I think it's actually a really neat game. Also, Pin Rogue. I've been playing this on PC. This is a pinball roguelike, as it would sound. That seems to be the catch-all right now is, take a roguelike and apply it to cool or interesting, fun traditional games. That's what this is. I'm having a pretty good time with it. I think it would be something that works probably better if I had a handheld PC style game system, or maybe it was on like Switch or something like that, but it works pretty well for what it is. No problems with it. Again, like in the description, I think kind of cool. Beyond that, that's basically been the indie and smaller titles that I've been checking out, just as a brief overview and like recommendations for it. We will have some regular reviews that I've pre-recorded or have already been released previously on the show in the actual episode coming up here, as well as probably a sort of catch-all roundup of the July movies that have come in, or movies that are either soon to be released or just released. Again, trying to make sure that we don't miss too much while we're on vacation. So I'm going to close out the intro here, send it over to a few reviews that I've done, and we'll come back at the end and just sort of talk about what's coming up next on the site over the next week or so. Our friends over at NIS America have sent Disgaea Mayhem for us to review. Now, this is a little bit different. This is a PS5 code that I received, and it is an action RPG, which is something a little different, because usually when we think of this, we think of tactical, very numbers heavy, very deep RPG elements here. And instead, what we have is an action RPG set in the Disgaea universe, adapting many of the pillars of the franchise into a brand new genre. You basically utilize, there's a whole bunch of different like weapon classes, swords, spears, guns and bows, staffs, fists and axes. You have screens and screens filled with enemies. You'll be able to recruit classic and some new demons to fight by your side and magic change into different weapons. You basically pass bills, level up your equipment in the item world. That stuff that you know from the classic franchise is back. You're basically trying to help Princess Tichelle get back her flan as a professional mercenary. Again, 7 different weapons. There is the ability to bring extra enemies or battle buddies into battle with you. You can pass bills as the dark chocolate assembly to add new game features, increase your experience gains, basically modify things to your own liking that way. You can reincarnate to reach greater heights. It's got all those features that the deeper traditional turn-based RPG has, but in an action way. There is interesting way that, like, if it gets too difficult for you, you can like figure out new ways to get stronger by like changing gameplay styles or altering the rules of the game to get better. It's kind of, you can break your build pretty interestingly through it. Graphically, it's nothing really to write home about. It'll run on pretty much anything. I don't think it would really have trouble. It's on Switch 2, PS5, PC. Audio languages, it's in English or Japanese spoken languages. Text languages, English, French, Spanish. Pretty solid release. Interestingly, it's not the most deep game that they've ever done for this franchise. It's also perhaps maybe the most accessible one that they've done in this franchise. So I'll put a link in the description for you if you want to check it out. I think it's pretty cool. I like that they're doing something different and going in slightly different directions than they usually do. Maybe it'll reach a slightly larger audience, or at least this freshens up the formula and let you have a bit of a break in between the mainline releases. We have had a chance to check out a review copy of Geppy-X. Now, what is Geppy-X? Now, I played this on the Nintendo Switch. for anybody that's wondering, it is strange. This was a 4-disc Japanese only PS1 exclusive shoot 'em up, done in the style of a 70s anime robot game sort of show, where every level is played out sort of like a movie or like a TV episode chapter, that sort of thing. And interestingly enough, it was put on so many discs because it had so much like cartoon animation on it back in the day, and you could only fit so much on each, because the actual graphics aren't something that was like blowing the PlayStation away when it comes to like the technical complexity. It has a really cool, unique art style, controls pretty well. I will say this right off the bat, it's not the best shooter game, obviously. It's just not. It's fun and interesting. It's very cool from a package perspective of just a slice of the time period it came out, the time period it was trying to replicate or spoof or pay homage to, and cool that it's coming out now, in a package that is able to be played in the West for the first time. It's a solid like package and release. I think it's really fun. I don't think this is like, it's not like marketing to like little kids. This is very much for people that were maybe fans of the import game back in the day, but people in like their like late 20s to like 30s and 40s that grew up in the 90s and 80s, 90s, and early 2000s that loved this style, that don't see it much anymore, and get to sort of feel a piece of like the history coming back to life. It's fun. Like I said, it's not the best performing game, like when it comes to feel and game design. It's just a really fun experience, and I do think it's worth checking out. It plays just fine on the Switch, so it doesn't matter really what platform you play it on, you're probably going to have a good time. That being said, I'll put a link in the description of the show so you can check it out, because I think it's pretty solid, and I think it would be worth your time, especially over the summer when things are hot or when the weather gets bad and you just want to like veg out and have something fun and nostalgic to play. Alex, the producer here, and it is time for our end of July. It's hard to believe we're pretty much almost there. Roundup that we're doing on our break of some of the movies that have come in that I've had a chance to check out, take with me while I'm on vacation. They're going to be brief overviews for the most part here, but some cool releases. There's some more stuff that's come in as well, and we'll see if we have time to get to it, maybe on another show at the end of the month or at the very beginning of next. But there's basically just a stack of 7 movies that I've had a chance to check out while we've been on break that I'm going to briefly overview. One DVD, actually, which is funny because we don't cover a lot of regular DVDs anymore, but sometimes if they get sent to us, we'll make sure that we at least highlight it, because it's something that you'd think, oh, shouldn't I be reviewing a Blu-ray of this or a digital copy? But no, sometimes there is stuff. It's kind of, I think it's made for the mom and pop grandpa audience, picking it up at a Walmart or something. But that's sort of the case here. The company that sent it is Aura, and it is Hungry, which at looking at it is basically a Hungry Hippos take. Now, it's not obviously licensed by them for that property, but that's what it equates to in the mind. And it's pretty bare bones attire here. You get the film in its original aspect ratio. Region 1, you end up with a 5.1 surround track, which is a little surprising because sometimes these more budget releases on DVD only include a stereo track, so it's better than the streaming, I'll tell you that. And then there is a making of Hungry on here as well, but the basic premise is people go on a riverboat journey, and it's a survival horror because they're surviving against hippopotamuses. So yeah, fun, straightforward, rainy day, ridiculous, pop it in kind of movie. As well, another movie that was sent to us from Neon is Hokum. This was one of the slew of horror films to have come out in the last few months, or at least I guess it's a few months ago now, in theaters. This is a 4K HD UHD release plus Blu-ray, and included here is some bonus features for the making of Hokum. Jack the Donkey, a family favorite. Feature commentary with Damien McCarthy, teaser trailers, all that good stuff. It's in obviously the original aspect ratio. The tone mapping is quite good for the UHD disc. It still looks pretty good because it's a fairly dark film, so it looks just fine on regular Blu-ray as well. Now, the interesting thing here is this is region ABC. Usually the Blu-rays are region A only here, but from what I can tell, this is a region-free Blu-ray, and then the 4K disc is always region-free. They only have, it's not really region-coded at all for any of those releases. And as far as audio is concerned, it's basically the same audio on both discs, so you're not getting a like high resolution Atmos or DTS-X track on here, but you're getting a pretty good DTS HD Master audio track on the whole thing. Solid if you're a fan of the creepy horror stuff. It's definitely worth checking out. A couple of more releases that I wanted to just briefly touch upon. There is from our friends over at 88 Films, Ping Pong, filmed by Fumihiko Sori. Got a little tongue twisted when I try to describe. But this is one of those releases we've talked about previously where they come out with these numbered Obi strips. There's 4,000 units available. Each one is going to be individually numbered. So when you get it, like in my particular case, it's 3,167. These are region AB, so these work in multiple regions. Surprisingly, they didn't do region C, but I'm going to assume that there's some rights issues in that region. This is an unrated film. Canada usually has to have some ratings, or used to have to. It doesn't anymore, so that's why it doesn't have to have like the 14 or R stickers or anything like that on there. But this is in its original aspect ratio, Japanese 5.1 HD Master Audio with English subtitles, plus the original Japanese 2.0 track. There's audio commentaries on here. There are video essays, trailers, original newly commissioned art. Pretty solid release. This is basic premise. Punkish ping pong prodigy Pico, played by Yosuke Kobazuka. I will do my best to say the names properly. It's basically a little bit pop culture-y weirdness goes on, but essentially it's tournament day draws near where it's China versus Japan. There is drama. Best way to put it. It's adapted from a cult manga series, so that's why it has that visual flair and style that usually don't translate that easily, but it translates quite well here. Solid release, cool. I think it's worth checking out if you're a fan of especially if you're a fan of the manga. But beyond that, it's going to be more for hardcore Japan cinephiles to pick up, but I still think it's a pretty cool release. And if you can get it, get one of the numbered limited editions that has the number printed right on it for you, so you can put it right in your collection. Maybe you'll get lucky and you'll find a low number on the list. Also, our friends over at Neon sent Baz Luhrmann's epic Elvis Presley in concert. This is 4K HD plus Blu-ray. Now, this is interesting. So, this is not the Elvis movie that I thought were being sent initially. This is not. I mean, it was really well liked, but it was a little divisive in my crowd amongst people that saw it. I was not a fan of the liberties that were taken for the sake of the visual art and using the contemporary song. I was not a big fan. Just not a big fan. I really liked the performances in that movie. This is a different project that Baz took on, which is for the first time ever, Elvis tells his own story through candid conversations and dazzling performance footage from the early days of the Vegas residency. So they've basically done here what the Beatles did with the Let It Be sessions, where you saw like all of the I think Peter Jackson put that one together, where it's like all the videos that were taken during those sessions, and it put a whole new light and made you really feel that you were in the room seeing what was going on. This is the same sort of deal, but for Elvis's early residency, before his health took a turn. So it's got never before seen archival footage, which was unearthed from personal archives for the very first time. Baz Luhrmann presents an intimate and riveting cinematic portrait of one of the greatest performers of all time. And I can say this, it was a riveting, this is one of my favorite things that Baz has ever put together, honestly. Solid. Obviously, they've done a really good job of restoring the footage because it's all different types of quality. You know, it's like Super 16 or Super 8, 16 millimeter, some archival like television tape footage mixed with some more professional looking 16 millimeter stuff. It's all over the place. And, you know, it runs just under an hour and a half, hour and 40 minutes or so. What's cool here is they've gone and done their best to do a restoration and give you a full 5.1 track. So the music sounds as good as it's going to sound. I'll say that. Really interesting production put together. I think it's a side effect of when he was putting together that movie, that theatrical feature, that all this footage was found and this became a second project. Pretty cool. I like it. I think it's worth picking up. If you're a fan or you got parents or grandparents at this point that are fans, it's definitely worth checking out. As well, our friends at Unearthed Classics sent over a Blu-ray release of Tetsuo the Bullet Man. Now, this is not the movie like you would think. If you've heard of it, you're thinking, you know, this is not Tetsuo the Iron Man. That's that classic and I would say very, very hard to watch movie, black and white movie of body morphing horror, you know, that sort of craziness that I think a lot of us downloaded copies and watched back in the day when it was hard to find anywhere else. But this is a more modern, strange take. Like it's a completely different story. Anthony is a bland and cautious American office worker living in Tokyo with nothing exceptional about him, or so he thinks. When his young son is killed, Anthony begins a violent and bizarre metamorphosis. His flesh transforming into metal, his body expressing repressed rage and lust for revenge. Anthony is becoming the weapon that will destroy the man who killed his son, and if his rage cannot be contained, the entire city in the process. Cult director Shinya Tsukamoto's Tetsuo trilogy comes full circle in Tetsuo the Bullet Man. So I didn't know there was a trilogy. You know, like I knew back in the day that the original, like it was like a visceral underground hit, right? So this is 71 minutes long. It's got English and Japanese language, so it's sort of in between. So it's a bit of both in it. 177 to 1 aspect ratio, so it's going to fit your TV. It's not in the traditional scope ratio. The movie's from 2009, and then it's now had a proper sort of restoration release here in 2026. There's audio commentaries with the actors involved and cinema experts. There's promotional galleries, trailers. It's pretty solid and pretty neat. Now I kind of got to go back and watch the original movie and find out what the other stuff in this trilogy is. But yeah, cool. Put a link in the description for that. And the last thing I'm going to talk about here in our roundup here for the end of July is a couple of Van Damme classics from our friends at MVD in their MVD Rewind collection. There is Lionheart, which I'm trying to think. It was known as something else here. Was it? It wasn't Lionheart. It was. I am gonna draw a blank here. Let me think here. It was Van Damme's because it was. I think it had like multiple names on VHS. This was not one of the bigger hits of his at the time. Like it was one of those ones that was like a big video rental hit, but it wasn't really on a lot of television. And I think it had to do with one of them things where it's like, I think it was not produced. It was Universal Pictures, but it wasn't like one of the ones that got consistently into like other, you know, mainstream like television syndication rights or anything. Okay, it went by a few different names. Wrong Bet and Over in Oceania, and UK was Absent Without Leave. So Lionheart was what it was called. I think I must have originally seen, you know what, I probably saw with my uncle, I probably saw like bootleg copies of the versions released over in like Australia, Japan, and China and that. So that's probably why the name, you know, doesn't fit in my brain. But there's two of these movies here. I'm going to talk about this one briefly first. This was a pretty awesome action. It's a lower budget affair from his early film days, but he plays a French legionnaire who deserts to Los Angeles. He has to support his sister-in-law and niece. He enters a brutal underground fighting competition and tries to evade capture. This is a 4K release that also happens to have a Blu-ray as well. So the Blu-ray has a lot of special features. There is the US theatrical version, the extended version, which is about 6 minutes longer. It's in 1:8:5 it's in scope ratio, or it's in standard ratio. It has a stereo, uncompressed audio completely, or a 5.1 track. The 5.1 is probably preferred, but if you're listening with headphones, honestly, the PCM audio is probably a better way to go. There's archival commentaries with Sheldon Lettich, the director and writer. There is, that's on the extended cut actually only. There is Lionheart, The Inside Story. It's a HD 48-minute behind-the-scenes interview. There's a whole bunch more. There's interviews with Brian Thompson, who's always been great in things like this. There's more HD behind-the-scenes stuff that was made over the years when the original Blu-ray first came out. Archival making-of, featurettes, 5 promotional TV clips, behind-the-scenes photo galleries, theatrical trailers, archival interviews with a bunch of the other actors involved. And then on the 4K disc, you have a director-approved 4K scan and restoration. It's a 16-bit scan. To give you an idea, most televisions, I would say for 50% of televisions out there, are probably still only 8-bit. 10-bit if you have an HDR-ready television. 12-bit if you maybe have a really high-end Dolby Vision television set. And then 16-bit is stuff that is usually reserved for like Criterion Collection restorations and preservations. So they've got a really, really high-end digital restoration done for future releases whenever consumer technology catches up to that. It's the extended AWOL cut, meaning it's the cut from Europe of this on that. It's presented in 1:7:8:1, so they've actually done a little bit of cropping. It's probably to fix some of the potential damage or help the actual framing of the scenes for that release, because as we know, the release that would have been released over in Europe would have been in a slightly different aspect ratio than what we would have here. So it's probably sort of just the compromise, and it obviously has HDR. It is the stereo only release and PCM audio. It does not have the 5.1. That was something that was created after the fact for the Blu-ray release originally. So you get the original audio this way. There's also a collectible mini poster. There is reversible cover art, and as well as an audio commentary on this. So it's pretty solid as far as what's included. On top of that, we have the other release here in the same series, and that is Van Damme's Death Warrant, probably a much more famous of the two releases. This one's sort of considered a classic. A lot of people would watch this kind of back-to-back in the 90s, either on television or on a movie rental night. They would get this, and they would get Lock Up with Stallone, because they were kind of like two similar themes. And that is, Van Damme plays Detective Louis Burke, an undercover cop posing as an inmate inside the violent Harrison Penitentiary. Brutal murders spread throughout the prison. He must uncover the killer before his cover is blown. Deadly enemies are closing in. Only his martial arts skills stand between survival and becoming the next victim. Awesome action movie. This is a really good one from back in the day. Similar special features here as well. So all the interviews, all that sort of stuff, all on the Blu-ray, with also stereo uncompressed track. This does not have a surround track on here, but it's got the original stereo uncompressed track, and same sort of 16-bit scan. Now the difference here is that Lionheart had a 4K scan of the original negative. This one had a it says here it has I don't know if it's 2 HD or 2K. I don't think it was a 4K. I think there's maybe a misprint on the back here, because I believe it's a 4K scan. It just might have been printed to say 2 HD. That's not a standard. So take that with a grain of salt. I'm going to assume it's a 4K scan because it looked just as good as the other movie. This one is in its original 1:8:5 aspect ratio, and HDR obviously included. and it has the uncompressed stereo, plus the commentary, collectible death warrant, 4K laser vision mini poster, reversible cover art. Pretty sweet releases. If you're a big fan of action films, they're no-brainers. Definitely pick them up. And that's sort of the roundup I've got here right now. Sort of nearing the end of the month, our first roundup of our summer vacation. We're going to have some more movies to talk about over the next week or two, but that's pretty much it. I'll put links in the description for all these. Most, I think, are going to catch your fancy if you're looking for something fun to watch over the summer, especially if you're looking for action movies. There's some pretty cool stuff out right now.
In the Rhythm Heaven Groove game, don't see the beat, feel the beat. There it is. Just wait for the cue. Perfect. And now you're in the groove. Challenge your rhythm while playing solo or multiplayer in over 80 rhythm games. Rhythm Heaven Groove. Available now on the Nintendo Switch system. A free demo is also available now on Nintendo eShop.
Alex, the producer here, and our friends over at Nintendo sent a review copy of Rhythm Heaven Groove. This is for the Nintendo Switch. I am obviously playing it on my Switch 2 as I do not have an original Switch anymore, and I think that's going to be the situation for many people buying it, but obviously works great on Switch 1. I had to go checking to see with other people to see, that have reviewed or checked it out, and it seems to obviously work well on the Switch 1 because the graphical style and whole design of this game is not something that was very taxing even on previous gen hardware. It's all about vibe and feels and going with the rhythm, obviously. So there is a demo of this available, so if you're somebody who's not quite sure, maybe it's worth checking out for you. I was not somebody who had ever played anything in the series previously. I'd heard of it. It was sort of in the, I guess, black hole of my Nintendo offshoot, like not mainline Mario game franchises. That because there was a period of like 2002 or 3 to like. I played a little bit of a little bit of Wii when it first came out, but not much outside of the mainline stuff. There was like a 10-year, 12-year period where I didn't really play Nintendo games. I wasn't playing on Xbox either. I was strictly a little bit of PC for like RTS games and a few role-playing games, and I was basically almost exclusively playing on PlayStation in that era of my early 20s, late teens, early 20s. And now that I'm coming back to it, I get to try out all these cool franchises that I'd never had a chance to play before. And this is one that I believe skipped the entire Switch generation, the original version, like Switch 1, until this, at the very, very, very end of the Switch generation. Because obviously I've been reviewing stuff with This Week in Geek and touching on Nintendo stuff all the way back in 2017 when I started. And basically I joined This Week in Geek about the month or so that the Switch came out. So I've been covering it since then, and this is, right at the tail end of that generation. So I've had a chance now to check it out. It is one of those games that is really easy to jump into, and then it can get a little tricky to master as you go. So it's good. It's not like you're going to be bored very quickly. Like I was worried that was going to be an aspect of it, but it's not. It holds your hand just enough to get you going, and then it has a lot of the weird, wacky sort of like mini games. Like you can have up to 3 people join you around a single system, or in like 30 different multiplayer games you can play. You can go against each other or sabotage each other, play for helping each other. There's like rhythm tweezers where you're trying to pluck a hairy onion, like ridiculous stuff like that. There's a bunch of other, like, I don't want to go through every single mini game, but there's also like there's Beat Spell, which is like a pseudo RPG element to it, which is what piqued my interest when I saw it. A lot of cool stuff involved here. It's pretty fun. If people wondering, the price point, it's at $54 Canadian digitally. If you're looking for physical, it's also $54. So if you're looking for physical, and I know right now that is a big draw, as we've seen happening with other companies maybe announcing that they're going completely digital, and there is a lot of hubbub around digital, digital quote-unquote rentership versus ownership versus owning a physical copy where it's all in the cart. Being that it's a Switch 1 game and it's a first-party game, if you get the physical version, which right now, as of this recording, is the same price as digital, you'll own it physically, and you can share it that way. I'm playing it digitally. I'm happy with it as is. But no, that the fact that the physical version, if you can find it in the stores, first of all, because it's probably going to be selling out pretty well, and it's not going to be like a huge print run, I would say, yeah, pick it up physically. It's pretty cool that way. But if not, at the $54, it's on the upper end of what I would think is a good value proposition for a title of this, I would say, production value. And I know it's hard to like fully quantify, what makes a $50, $60, $70, $80 game. But we know that, quote unquote AAA releases in Canada now, depending on the company, you're anywhere from $90 to $110. I still think $110 is too much for, like, in a world of millions of games coming out and everybody, clamoring for your time and money. I do think that unless it's a very, very special game, that is too much money. But this is basically half the price of a top AAA physically on cart game from Nintendo. There's only been a few that are priced at that, but it's half of that. This is priced in where, before you calculate for inflation, what the value budget titles were back, let's say 5-10 years ago, even, when they were coming out at about 40 Canadian, and now it's 55. Inflation, whatever you want to call it. This is priced, I think, just about right. I wouldn't pay more than this. If it was 60, I would actually say it's too much. I think this is sort of the sweet spot. I would have preferred it to be 40 or 50, but 55, this is about right, and especially if you can track down a physical version. If not, digital is cool. It's not a huge game to download, and it is cool. It's something I can easily pick up and play, and just have a few moments of fun with it on the go. It's also not going to take up too much space. It's only 3.2 gigs on whatever platform you play it on, if you're playing it on Switch or Switch 2. There isn't like a dedicated Switch 2 version. It just plays in Switch 1 mode, but you'll have the added advantage of quicker load times, and then having it sort of locked at the higher resolution when you're playing it in handheld mode, which is always good. I think it's worth your time. I'll put a link in the description. It's pretty fun.
Two worlds, one fateful encounter. A remake of the second Star Ocean game, complete with new graphics that fuse 2D and 3D, is on the way. After a mission goes wrong, Federation Officer Claude is stranded on an undeveloped planet. There, he meets Reyna, who possesses mystical powers. Was it fate or mere coincidence? Soon after, the two get entangled in a sinister plot within the galaxy. In this science fantasy RPG, select either Claude or Reyna as your hero and play through the story from their perspective. You'll also meet over a dozen potential allies from all walks of life. During your adventure, the hero you chose and the decisions you make will have an impact on who can be recruited to your cause.
The enemy, is it?
Battles take place in real time, and skills can be performed with a single button. New combat features in this remake include stunning enemies with chain attacks, and having allies not in your current party unleash follow-up attacks, letting you map out strategic battles in your favor. As you search for a way home, an ancient prophecy will unfold and your destiny will be awakened. Save the planet in Star Ocean: The Second Story R.
Our friends at Square Enix have sent Star Ocean: The Second Story R for us to review. Now, this is maybe deja vu for you because we covered this when it came out on the PlayStation 5. What is it, a couple years ago now? Yeah, I think it was, it's almost 2.5 years. Jeez. So when we played this was one of my games of the year because it harkened back to my childhood when my friend had a PlayStation, and this was one of the RPGs he had. He had this. He had Tales of Eternia 1 or 2 or something like that. And he had Lunar 1, and I was the guy that had I had like the Final Fantasy games, and he had so we sort of complemented each other. We would borrow each other's games. He was into the RPGs that were more like quote unquote Enix style or separate ones like this. Then I had the more square stuff. So it was fun to go back. It was a really well done. Like it's a remake, but it's more than just like it's like 2.5D / it's not the HD 2D style, except that the sprites are kind of like HD 2D, but then the environments are like much higher quality. The only thing that was different here is, like, you could listen to that review if you want to go over like the actual quality of the game. I'll just say, spoiler alert, the game's really good. It's the best in the franchise. And even that version was pretty much the best representation of it. The only downside was, it didn't really depend even on what system you played it on, even on PC. It had a lot of visual shimmering and like jaggy edges, and even no matter what resolution you tried to play it with, you'd have to like try to use patches and mods and stuff on PC if you wanted to mitigate that. But it still had some pretty massive pop-in depending on where you went. It's just sort of a limitation of how they designed the game. You could get over that, but that was like a nitpick for it. Here it appears to be using a more advanced maybe either DLSS or whatever. I know that there's stuff like that on the Switch 2 that has it's got its own like special version DLSS and that can help with anti-aliasing and scaling. The shimmering effect appears in my eyes to be significantly less here. Maybe they spent more time making this version specifically work better. It's obviously miles above the quality that was released on the original Switch version. I believe that one was basically stuck at 720p upscaled to whatever resolution, and it was kind of like mostly 30 FPS. This is basically 60 FPS at 4K when you have it docked. Maybe it's using DLSS, but still good. And then handheld is 1080p 60 without any issues. I had no hiccups playing it. I'm not completely done it. Normally we wait for a full review when I'm doing like a full gameplay playthrough to do that. We've already done it for this game. This is just a new version and a new way to play it. So I've played significantly through the game enough that I can go, I know how this is going to turn out, and I can say that it's a very solid port, at least in my eyes. And it's a great way to jump in if you've never played. You don't have to have played any games in the Star Ocean franchise to get into it. The only thing is, this is the best one in the franchise. So you go into this, you'll be like, wow, this is amazing. Yeah, this is the best that the series got. Again, that's a personal opinion, but it's also an opinion that I think a lot of people out there have. So this is a great way to jump into the franchise, especially knowing that it has the best highlights of gameplay, story, presentation, and now obviously having the ability to play something like this with as much of a visual flair that it has on the go or in the Switch 2. I think it's a no-brainer. RPG fans should definitely pick it up.
Those magnificent bastards! Color me kooky, but something very odd is going on around here.
You're not allowed to talk anymore.
Okay, that's going to do it for the show. Usually say this week, but I don't know when we're going to have another one just yet. Basically, when we have enough reviews saved up and ready to go for our next batch during our summer break, maybe a week and a half, something like that, I think. Maybe. I'm not entirely sure just yet, but we will. As far as other programming coming up, we have more Twig Random Access Memories. We got a couple. We'll see where we slot them in. But for the next few weeks, we will have new episodes of Future Imperfect that we recorded. Some on revisiting Star Trek movies, some on other sci-fi movies that we recorded while we were in the midst of doing stuff in the springtime. And we wanted to have some cool sci-fi stuff for the summer. Summer of sci-fi. So that'll be coming soon. There'll be brand new episodes of Earth vs. Soup. I just have to edit the next big batch because we're pretty much out right now. I think we're completely caught up on what I already had edited. So we got plenty to go. I'll be frantically working like a madman. I'm going to pick one day out of my vacation in the next couple of days to get like the next 2 or 3 months worth ready to go. We've also got new episodes of the Spellbook. Birdman is recording a few over the next couple of days, and we'll have those ready to go. I just don't have titles yet to share with everybody, but just know we're generally going to have 1 to 2 podcasts. We'll probably have Spellbook, Earth vs. Soup every week, and then we're going to alternate Future Imperfects, maybe with some Random Access Memories, and then on off weeks or off days. We might have a review show or two or something ready to go. As we continue on into September, I have a feeling we're not coming back immediately in September. It might be an extra week longer, so it might be the second weekend that we come back in full force, because we got to make sure we get prepped, because then we're already in like holiday mode planning, which is kind of crazy. But yeah, that's what we're looking at right now. We'll have more stuff. I planned originally to launch a new show this summer about like forgotten TV shows. That's still gestating. I have to get a few things prepped. I also have to wrangle some people that might want to co-host with me on a few random episodes. I've got to get like old episodes together of shows that either didn't have a home video release or were only aired once on TV, and get them to watch an episode or two to see how they feel, do a little bit of research on it. It's going to be very much like our loose cannon, but specifically focused on like weird television shows that like everybody forgot existed. So that's going to be kind of fun. I've already got artwork made. I've got to make like a new intro for it, and we'll see how that all goes. But yeah, that's sort of just a peek into what's going on. We're in the midst of our summer vacation. We'll be back in a week, maybe two, with another one of these review shows. And I'm going to sign off for now and going to say toodaloo. Try to enjoy the sun, and talk to you guys next time right here on ThisWeekInGeek.net.
At no point in your rambling, incoherent response were you even close to anything that could be considered a rational thought.
Thanks for listening to this episode of This Week in Geek. Hungry for more? Check out our website at ThisWeekInGeek.net. You can subscribe to the podcast, browse our Twitter and Instagram, and leave your thoughts on today's topics. If you'd like to give us some feedback, send us an email at feedback@thisweekingeek.net. Tune in next time, and remember,
lower your shields and surrender your listenership.
We would be honored if you would join us.
Thank you for your cooperation. Good night.